Fun.
Welcome to the acclaimed podcast, The Deep Dive, featuring your esteemed hosts, Andy Monitor and Drew Dinzik, powered by BetSperts.
Welcome to The Deep Dive. We are here on a Thursday. Surprise. But you know what? We're professionals.
I almost called in sick today.
Oh, no.
Oh, God. I'm not going to get too deep into it.
We're going to get 4 done this week.
If they give you a bunch, I'm not a breakfast guy, Drew.
I can't remember last time I ate breakfast.
Big breakfast guy growing up, but just not a breakfast guy. I eat lunch. I'll eat when lunch comes around.
I'll have a breakfast burrito on a weekend at noon. Does that count?
When you go, brunch is nice. Weekend breakfast is nice. But yeah, when you go to the doctor and they're like, hey, you should take this and this and take these for a couple weeks, you'll feel better. You shouldn't take all those in the morning and just not eat. I think that's what fucked me this morning. Because for about part of the day, I'm like, I feel worse now. I might be dying. I'm having dizzy spells.
Did I get this stomach flu on top of this?
Oh no, God. I was lightheaded and shit. And then I had lunch. I'm like, oh, pills are good, but yeah, not on an empty stomach. Just not a thinker sometimes. I'm more of a
COVID
doer.
Will absolutely fry your brain. I am not at my sharpest. I guarantee you that. I guarantee that.
The NFC West will always be remembered as Andy stumbling. My notes aren't as great for this. Normal, but we got a couple of.
I got all my work done early enough that I don't think I was impacted. I like my ratings. I like my numbers, and I like these teams.
I like to update the day of, and anything I did today was very questionable at best. But yeah, these are a couple of good teams. This was a playoff team from last year. They went 7-1 down the stretch. Got a lot out of some young players. Got a lot out of a young wide receiver. Got more than they thought.
We are, of course, talking about the Ramathorns.
We were really down on this team. We thought it was extremely fragile, I believe. Kind of was, their MO for the last however many years. But the offensive line was a trillion times better than we thought it would be. Stafford, despite missing, I think he missed just the one game. He had 3 different injuries. So it's Stafford, classic him. He didn't miss much time. They got the most out of some young defensive players. They had the Puka effect. Kupp only missed the first 4 games, I think, and then he was back. And suddenly things were humming, and the ball bounces your way a few times. You end a stretch like that, and you go to the playoffs, and then you're a pain in the ass team to play because you got a really good coaching staff and experienced quarterback, and but probably not. Yeah, and weapons. It probably, even at the beginning of the playoffs, it was tough to see them oh man, are they going to beat 3 good teams? That was a big ask, but
they were because I had a big bad price on them to win the NFC. I think my NFC price was close to 70-1. We'll say 69-1 to win the NFC, and they were under 20 by the time we got to the playoffs. So, oh well.
Still
it's a fun run. It was a fun run, and I had some of my most memorable and painful losses betting against the Rams last year, and I had some of my most enjoyable wins. Hugely enjoyable win covering against the Ravens in that game. That was one of my favorites of the whole regular season. Bet them a bunch down the stretch and reaped some benefits there. Against the Browns in Flacco's first start, where I was like, really? Flacco's just gonna get off the couch and just winning. He's just gonna win NFL football games. Oh, okay, sure he is. Well, he didn't win that game, but he won the rest of them. And then he lost down the stretch. But he got
the shit kicked out of him in the playoffs.
Yeah, the opening week was an eye opener because it was who the hell are they going to throw to? Cooper Kupp's out. This team is thin already, and they're missing their most important piece. That's not That's not Matt Stafford. The defense was an entire experiment of how good would your defense be if you had a Hall of Famer and 10 Jags because that was their depth chart last year. And ultimately, the answer was okay. Good enough to get a guy hired in Atlanta as the head coach, but it was I think ultimately the fact that McVay kind of had a renewed enthusiasm for coaching with the young team that had like a surprise potential instead of sort of perennial contender status was a huge part of what made that a special run. They finished 7th overall in offensive DVOA, 22nd in defensive DVOA. They had a tough schedule. They acquitted themselves while not quitting at 3-6, despite the fact Stafford, who had swirling questions about his health and availability. He came back and he was great. And
even a few steps back, Drew, we had preseason questions. Obviously, they weren't really questions. They were Cooper Kupp is injured. He's not starting the season. We had questions about Stafford because of some of the offseason rumors. And then, for several years now, we've had rumors about McVay, just like, hey, he got a Super Bowl. He kind of doesn't want to, he might not want to coach till he's 70. He might just go, he might just go to, I think Amazon was the rumor. He ended up obviously sticking around. So, the team was really up in the air. And like we talked about, who was it? Whitworth several years ago. That his retirement and the collapse of that offensive line in like 22. That was such a big question mark too. It's like, man, hey, you're a quarterback who gets hurt all the time. And you're tough as hell, but like, do you want to play behind this offensive line?
Yeah.
Going into your mid 30s here, and a lot of stuff came together. So that's the toughest part of the equation for me this year is taking all these second year players and, I'm using second year players like a sophomore, out of college, but some of these guys, it's just like their second year of doing something,
right.
Like there's a bunch of guys who was like, you were a lot better last year than we thought you'd be, or, hey, you're somebody we brought in from another spot, especially in the secondary that was completely rebuilt in the offseason pretty much. It's really hard to figure out, whereabouts should I rank these, especially this defense really for me compared to other teams losing the best to ever do it in the middle of the, defensive line, Aaron Donald, and your defensive coordinator.
Yeah, and I think that's the key, which is the exercise last year was.
And I started low. I said I'm just starting.
Yeah,
low,
right.
buddy.
Yeah, exercise last year was what do you get with a Hall of Famer and Jags, and this year the question is, well, what do you get with the young core when you take away the Hall of Famer?
They did add. They added some pieces. They added some nice pieces.
All right, we'll get there, I guess.
It's not like they added an Aaron Donald level player at any level of the field, but they added some secondary pieces.
Well,
let's
do a little more autopsy first before we get to what they changed. Okay. My other kind of thoughts autopsy wise were this: when healthy, the wide receiver, the breakout of Puka Nacua was a enormously important aspect to this team thriving last year. He made his intentions obvious week 1 as he torched the Seahawks, which I had laid the points with and was very unhappy watching that game. And he carried that to rookie records in the receiving department that were, all time. And
shout out Sam, opposite of us there.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And Puka Nacua was better than advertised. Cooper Kupp eventually came back, although I don't think anyone would look at his body of work from last year and tell you that was a healthy man. Presumably he's healthier this year coming into camp. Your offensive line took a huge step forward, no longer relying on Joe Noteboom to handle the left side. Jackson stepped in and did a really nice job there. The offensive line overall performed well last year for the Rams, and I think that combined with kind of a slight change in scheme where all of a sudden now McVay was finding interesting different ways to unlock the running game. It wasn't the zone blocking stuff that made Todd Gurley like the fantasy darling. It was much different, kind of duo run concepts that helped that.
Yeah, a little more gap blocking,
really shine late. Yeah,
and they did well. If you go
wide receiver blocking, running blocking.
If you look at some of the stats for just it's hard to discern who's doing what and who's getting the piece of the pie. Let's talk about that with awards, but it happens on the field too. Like who should be getting the credit pie. because some of it is running back, some of it's scheme, some of it is design, and some of it's offensive line when you're running the ball. But like some of the running back numbers, like yards before contact, and just the efficiency numbers they had, like shit was working. What they put out there from a scheme standpoint was fair. I think I give scheme the biggest chunk, but also those players went out and did it. That offensive line really stepped up, especially in the run block.
Yeah, and you had the emergence of Kyron Williams, and it all kind of happened at the right time at the end of the year where they built into the close, and it was easy as hell to look across the NFC at the end of the regular season and be like, the Rams are a top 4 team in the NFC. Am I crazy? Like, this might be as good an offense as the Niners. Like, this is a unit that is absolutely humming, and they could do some damage in the playoffs. Now they got very close. I will blame McVay's kind of continued conservatism and lack of kind of in-game decision-making prowess as part of the reason that they didn't ever get anything in the playoffs. And that's not changing. But, just in general, like, hat tip to McVay for finding ways to make things different and new and good and get better over the balance of the season, because, the Rams team that was, losing comfortably to the Eagles early in the season was not the same team that was, just absolutely putting it on, some of the NFL's best towards the end of the season. And a ton of the credit goes to McVay. There was one caveat, Andy. Their schedule down the stretch last year was pudding soft.
And as pointed out by several people, I think it's in the Football Outsiders preview, it's in Clef TA's, but anywhere you read a quick synopsis of last year, 2 teams missed game-winning field goals down the stretch against them.
Good point.
And they weren't like it's not like a Blair Walsh 26-yarder. They were longer, but like they had, coin flip field goals at the end of games to win 2 of those games. And you lose one of those, you're not in the playoffs. And we're probably talking about this team slightly differently, although we're still impressed with it. And it's funny too, like these coaches, how they talk about the players, and I'm working with him every day, and we knew he had this, but it just feels like you wonder how much of that is just bullshit. Because at the end of the day, they'll never say it, but like they probably had no idea like Puka Nacua was going to be that. Like, nobody can say,
no.
Oh yeah, we were sure he was going to be like suddenly a top 50.
Well, because that's the thing is that Puka Nacua, you can look at the box score numbers, look at his cumulative numbers for the season, and it's obviously holy shit. Yeah. But then you watch what he was actually contributing, even beyond just his catching, and it was
a good blocker.
He was hugely important to some of the success they had. And I guess here's the thing that I'll add to this: so they lose their playoff game by 1 point. If you kind of play that game over and over again 100 times, it's probably 50-50. And I would love to have seen the worlds where the Rams win that game and then go on, and they would have gone at Tampa, Andy. It would have been Rams at Tampa and Packers at the Niners in the second round of the playoffs, and we almost certainly would have had Rams Niners, I would have think, when the dust settles in the NFC Championship game. That would have been fun as hell. We could have had Rams hosting the Packers. Would not have been crazy in the NFC last year. We were very close to that.
You complained about this the other day when it was going to be like, a third straight matchup for 2 teams, but every like NFC West playoff game has been good over the years. Like those are like the exception. I always love those.
Dude, the Rams Niners NFC title game where I was in attendance was electric. It was excellent. So I agree with you.
And that's like a bottom 5 stadium as far as like vibes.
You're very wrong about that.
No, everybody hates it.
You're very wrong.
Well, no,
you're talking about SoFi? With the Rams house with the guy with the guitar and the DJ. You're crazy. You're crazy. You're crazy.
Cheesiest new stadium there is.
You're crazy. Even you're absolutely crazy.
Well, I mean, you were there for a title game. Go watch them play the Cardinals sometime.
No, thank you.
Exactly.
So the general point I was gonna make is they were very close to winning that playoff game, and I honestly I thought they played well enough to win it, and it's breaks against them, whatever. You have at that point, like, you finished the season one of the hottest teams in the NFL. You covered your last playoff game, like, it's not surprising that a lot of people, a lot of content created around the Rams heading into this season is kind of keyed on what you remember seeing last, which was, God damn it, they were good offensively. And this is clearly a top 10 offense. And I would just like to like kind of note that there will be a little bit of cold water for me on the Rams in this podcast, not because of anything specific about their roster decisions or their schedule, but like we are still not that far removed from credible reports of Stafford retiring.
Yeah.
Like real sincere, like it's 50-50. And Coop and Cooper Cup and McVay. And like if things like all of a sudden you look up and this team is Stetson Bennett cooking it up, trying to drop pass plays to Tutu Atwell, like it's gonna feel not great if you are a Ram Bull. And so I think in general, like with every year, and I'm going to say this every year.
Dresser win on the roster too.
I'm going to say this every year. The Rams are coached by McVay probably, and Stafford is a quarterback, which is like, I don't care how certain you are that this team is going to compete. Like it is so stars and scrubs. You better just cool your jets and find the right time to bet them in season. And so for that reason, I have not faded the Rams in any way, shape, or form. In fact, I bet them week 1. We'll get to that later. But I ultimately, I think the chances that something, goes sideways are very real. Puka Nacua already dealing with injuries this offseason. That's Stafford already dealing with injuries this offseason. Like you do not have to squint to look at a depth chart for the Rams with a couple of key players who are going to be out for a certain game and feel like, oh my God, this team is a -6. Like it's not that far. And so just kind of keep that in the back.
I understand where you're coming from the fragility of the offense, especially considering the cup injuries over the years, Puka injured now, what we've seen from Stafford the last few years, but I'm much more down on the defense. Like that's right.
That's what I'm saying. Like it doesn't take too many guys on the offense to be out on a given week to where you're just like, I mean, they're bad now. They're bad. Like it's really not going to be tough. And Stafford is really the key.
I didn't want to drop their defense to a level below, too far below what I've seen.
Okay.
But it's hard not to, again, when you lose the GOAT D tackle. Added some pieces, but yeah, the defensive, I thought the offensive ratings were really easy for this team. I thought it was super easy because I'm basing it on week 1. I'm like, hey, if Cup plays and everything's hunky dory, these are your numbers. It's pretty simple.
Easy. I agree. So what moves did you want to key on? Anything, or should we just jump right to ratings?
I
guess who on the defensive side that
the Jonah Jackson signing, that's a solid signing. Obviously the biggest 2 moves are probably, again, belaboring it, but you're losing Aaron Donald. You lost your
that was the biggest move of the entire offseason in the NFL.
Yeah.
I don't think it's bad to belabor it.
That your DC and I guess like some of the pieces you added to the secondary, like that's going to matter. The rookies you drafted,
Cam Curl, nice pickup.
You went up and got
Trey White. He might be able to play still.
Yeah, the second Florida State kid, Braden. Is it Fisk or Fisky? I don't know if we're throwing the E on there.
We'll say Fisk.
We're going to go with Fisk, but you got Verst and Fisk, so you went and got 2 defensive players that are probably both starting. You need a lot out of these guys right now. You went and got Cam Curl from Washington. More box safety guys, see how they use him. He'll be strong safety. Again, he's starting. Trey White from the Bills, he's starting. He's not a guy who's played a bunch lately. Darius Williams, I think Jacksonville. He's been in a couple places, I want to say.
Yeah, good grade on him last year, but we'll get to coverage. Yeah.
Him and Trey White, great. If it translates to this scheme and they're healthy, obviously more Trey White being healthy, but that's like 5-6 guys that are going to have starting roles / serious time on this defense, weren't with the team last year. And then you got a bunch of other guys like, Kobe and Byron Young and some of these other guys who are, second year guys. We haven't seen it a lot. Never really seen them play without Aaron Donald up in their front 7. So it's a lot of mystery on this defense. This defense could be one of the wider distributions of like, oh shit, like this is working. all these young players and all these signees, everything's kind of humming along. It's still an above average defense, or it's like this is an unmitigated disaster right now.
I'm there. Let's go through the ratings. I in general, I thought their offseason was fine, other than of course, and honestly, like when Donald retired, I was a little like taken aback. Like, what? Huh?
Yeah.
And then their draft, they flirted a lot with trading up for a tight end. And you're just like, no, dude, just guys could get bodies in the on the defensive line. Like your front seven is a problem right now. And that's what they did. And we'll see if that ultimately pays.
They almost went full Atlanta, like, boy, do we need a defender. You know what we should do? take a position of strength.
Yes.
No, they did the right thing. They sound like they really liked the other guy. They moved up to get him. They got first, probably another everybody who took a first round defender was like, we say the same thing, like, hey, you were blessed because they all fell and you were able to get somebody probably better than you should have at your draft slot. The other big move too is losing Morris, losing your DC. They elevated.
Yeah, what do you think of Chris Shula?
I don't want to say it's a Nepo hire.
I mean, is there any relation to Don?
Yeah, it's the grandson.
Oh, okay.
His uncles, his dad, and everybody, but he has been with the team for a while. It's funny, he played all 4 years at Miami of Ohio with McVay. They were college teammates.
Oh, so this is a double Nepo.
So double Nepo hire. I don't, it's one of those things where you go read the beat reporter shit, and it's going to be like, hey, we talked to, Kobe, and he's like, oh man, everybody just loves Shula. Like Shules, he's great. Yeah, he's really Shules. And it's like, yeah, we talked to some of the secondary guys. It's like, yeah, he's really good. He's going to put us in a position to succeed. I really like some of the schemes where it's really coming together at camp with Shules. Nobody's called Shules, but I'm going to call
it that
all year now. So it's hard to get like a good vibe. I'm just going to say it's a negative.
I'll tell you what, Shules is an all-time nickname. It's very good. Yeah, that's
so. Slick. Yeah, that's so slick. I'm posing that as a negative as well until further notice.
Okay, I would pose it as a negative only because the replacement or above replacement level player performance that you got last year, I feel like is fine to attribute mostly to Raheem, who's gone. And if it was ultimately the staff as a whole, and Shules was part of the keys to making those guys perform at that level, then maybe we're wrong. And DVOA of 22 continues to ascend up. But I feel like you take the key Jenga piece out of the tower with Aaron Donald, and 22 could very clearly fall to 28, and we should not be surprised. So
he's like all three pieces of
he's an entire level.
Jenga.
Right?
Good luck doing that. You got to do it so fast.
You got to do it so fast. That's right. All right, let's talk about ratings. Let's rip through offense, which is, again, I agree with you, it was quite easy for me. I spent very little time on this. What is your QBOC number?
7.
Oh wow, I'm higher than you. I'm at 8.
I'm a little lower just because he's old.
All right.
I was willing to. I started at 7.5 and I went down just because of the injury risk, the age.
Well, that's fair. That's fair.
Well, and also, like, I don't know if he's very good, but I don't think he's elite. I think he's very much in a very good spot. So Rams are a 7.
Okay.
Right now. At the quarterback. And I kind of looked at some of the other ones. Like, would you trade Stafford for, right now, would you trade Stafford straight up for Burrow?
For one season? Stafford plus Zach Taylor for Burrow and McVay? I probably would.
So, because I had them at an 8. I don't know that I would. They both get injured. Maybe I'm.
Well, the problem, maybe like
we're going to a 7.5.
So I was kind of in the 7.5 range as well. And honestly, like just what McVay brought to the table, and maybe I'm just drinking the Kool-Aid because I'm here in LA and there's a lot of McVay, like a lot of his kind of appearances on the preseason stuff gets pushed, and like he's very, very public facing, and it's easy to see that he still has like a zeal. A vigor for the game, and he's a brilliant offensive mind, and he can also train up coaches. So I'm fine with the OC kind of pushing this from a 7.5 to an 8, in my opinion.
I'm going to put it at 7.5. I have Dallas as a 7.
We're going to take some heat off of this when we get to intangibles, because that's where
Yeah.
McVay fails with a capital F. But we're going to save that for later. Skill position group for you?
7.
7, same.
Very, very good wide receiver duo.
Yes.
Bad depth.
Very, very, very thin. Yeah.
Including Demarcus Robinson as your third option, because like you said, after that it's Tutu Atwell,
Tyler Johnson, Jordan Whittington.
Your tight end room is not good, and one of those pieces is probably gone for a while anyway. Higbee's injury was in the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's seeming like it could be up to half the season. It just depends how that knee
so,
is.
yeah, the reason this is 11, I agree
Colby
with you. Colby Parkinson. He's got some super deep sleeper buzz in the fantasy community. Okay. Fine.
Well, I mean, but that's all value stuff. You know, that's like, oh, you can get him in the 12th round, and that's great for you. Like,
yeah. Oh, he's going undrafted. So
how he's going to perform. Yeah. But yeah, so I like Williams and bringing in Blake Corum as. Blake Corum had that injury in college too, and it kind of took some time for him to get going after that. But go watch him late in the season. He's very good. It seems like Williams isn't built. He's another one where he's not built to run 300 times. So
200 touches is where you want him to be.
Yeah, this is really nice to have a committee there. You even got Boston Scott, who I think is banged up right now as well. So you got some guys to back him up. It's good.
Yeah,
high-end wide receivers not complete because of the tight end and depth.
The Rams, if you didn't already know, run 11 personnel almost exclusively, which means Parkinson and Demarcus Robinson are going to be on the field a lot. And if either of those guys is a minus, then
somebody wondered out loud in an article.
Rich.
Somebody wondered out loud if they'd run more 12 because of their lack of depth at wide receiver. I said, why are you putting more tight ends out there?
Yeah, that's not that. Yeah.
I'm with you. Are you thinking Allen Davis on the field is a better option than Demarcus Robinson?
No,
Demarcus
at least
Robinson isn't horrible.
Yeah. Is Demarcus Robinson the quintessential sacrificial X on earth? Is he the guy under the Wikipedia page picture? Or what's the sacrificial X receiver look like?
Yeah, what's your? Well, I mean, what did you put for usage for him?
I have it under 10%.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's got to be like somewhere in the 5 to 10.
5 to 10. Yeah, I would say so.
It'll be interesting to see at the end of the year.
It will. 7, I think, is reasonable, and it's fine. Your note. I've heard that they are inclined to keep Kyren Williams on the shelf to the degree they can until later in the season. So if you're a prop player better and you're seeing numbers for Kyren Williams early in the season that reflect him being the bell cow, I would put under into action there until further notice. Corum's going to get his chances early, I think. O-line?
6.5.
Ooh, you're higher than me on this. I'm at 5.
I thought I was going to be a little high. And I started when I went and did my initial ratings. This was a 5.
Okay.
This is an average line, but the more I looked at it, it's like Jonah Jackson's a really good signing on that side because Alaric Jackson was pretty solid first year as a blindside guy.
Jackson.
Avila was fine at guard. He played center at college for at least a year or two. He's going to be fine. Kevin Dotson stopped in. He was fine. And then Havenstein.
Yeah.
He's closing in on being a top 10 tackle. Like you have a really strong tackle. And then, Noteboom is something because you don't probably want Noteboom starting, but
he's fine as a swing tackle.
He is the best swing tackle, I think, as far as like, hey, here's a guy I don't want starting, but if we need somebody to come in for half a drive or something, like it's really nice to have a guy who has a bunch of experience. And this interior line is massive. The 3 in the middle weigh almost 1,000 pounds. It's a beefy interior line combined with 2 pretty good tackles. So
okay,
I wonder how it looks.
Yeah,
second time through, but just based on ratings and who they're going to be playing where and bringing in Jonah Jackson, I had to go kind of high here.
Okay, that's reasonable. I'm a little low, mostly because their pass block win rate last year was pretty unspectacular. They were at 55%, which is good enough for 21st. Their run block win rate obviously was mediocre through the first half of the season and then got very good. And in general, like I've got spidey sense about injuries on some of these guys. Like they've already had some of these guys get dinged, which is not great. And yeah, again, the depth is not solid. Like swing tackle, if Noteboom is your swing tackle, Noteboom, by the way, who they're paying a lot of money to be a swing tackle.
They were paying him starter money a couple years ago.
They were paying him bookend left tackle money. Yeah. The rest of the depth on the O-line it's real questionable. I don't know how I feel. Is that Logan Bruss's music? Is that Bo Limmer's music?
Like, that's where I struggle to downgrade a number. Again, we go back to this argument over and over. It's like, this is my week 1 number. And wide receiver depth, I'm going to have to ding you on because there's going to be 4 wide receiver sets. There's going to have to be rotation stuff. O-line depth is harder to ding you on for a week 1 number. It's more of a note you have to the side where
correct,
it's like,
which is why
this team can swing down in a heartbeat. Like suddenly this is a 4.
Saying this every time, we're trying to make numbers for week 1. That's our goal.
Yeah, it's so tricky to think about this because you're right. The depth is not great behind.
That's what we mostly care about. Okay, so just for fun, the 6th and 7th cap hits for the Rams are not going to be on the field in week 1. They are Tyler Higbee and Joe Noteboom. Noteboom right now, his cap hit is almost 12 million. Higbee is also in that 12 million range. So they're getting it done with a lot of guys who are getting compensated a little. Let's move on to, actually, let me summarize the offense. So I'm at a 71st percentile. 71.3 percentile. You're at a 71.3 percentile. So yes, we have identical grades on the offense, which is a funny way of saying this was easy. Run stop for you was what?
4.5.
That's very favorable. Talk me through this. Because the front set, the weakness of this defense is the front 7. Clearly,
it is now. And so you got, again, Fisk, rookie, Verse, rookie, Turner, second year, Byron Young, second year. I like the linebackers a little. I like Ernest Jones. I liked some of the numbers. It wasn't bad. Like, again, this is so hard to tell what the delta between having
what's your
Donald and not having
Roseboom. I mean, this was very, very hard, but I think that in general, this is a pretty weak unit.
Yeah, I don't have any of these at like
Roseboom, by the way, South Dakota State guy.
Yeah.
How about that? Did you know that?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
He doesn't grade out well in anything. Ernest Jones does. But as far as like the front 7, what have you, as far as run defense, like Ernest Jones, great. Kobe Turner, great-ish.
Byron Young was fine.
He's a better pass rusher. Bobby Brown is not too far behind him, but like just nobody had a really shitty grade until you get to like Roseboom and God, what was it? I believe part of this I was taking into account too was Cameron Curl. He's a pretty good run defender. He's going to be up in the box quite a bit. So I tried not to go too low on this because they weren't like terrible at times.
No, their run D was fine last year.
It was good, but again, you take Donald away, what are you gonna do? So we went 4.5.
All right, I'm at 2.5. This is the lowest. This is the lowest grade I gave their overall unit, and it honestly it spooks me for them getting wins and being able to get the ball back because I do think you're going to be able to run against these guys. Pass rush for you?
Pass rush. I lost my place. Is at 4.
4. Okay. I went 3.5. We're not that far apart. Who do you like on the pass rush side of the ball outside of Kobe Turner, who obviously I was critical of giving him too high of a grade because anytime you play next to Aaron Donald, you're just going to look better. You just are.
He graded well. Honestly, Brown on the inside didn't grade out too poorly either. You could do a lot worse. Ernest Jones, another one. Like Ernest Jones is popping. Yep. He's not an every down rusher though. He's going to come, 10 times a game. They're going to use him. They're going to bring him Yeah, between Young, Brown, Kobe Turner, and Ernest Jones, it was like, you know what? It's not shit, but it's not going to be good. You're going to need something from the rookies. And I guess I sprinkled a little upside because, I mean, they are two highly drafted rookies.
Yeah. Do you make anything of the idea that they were college teammates and that they have some existing chemistry? Do you think that matters?
I don't know if that's worth like a bump in
it probably doesn't work.
They've played together, but I mean, go look at their combined stats in like the ACC title game and some of the games late. Like, I think they had 5 combined sacks. They were good. So they're very good. So I did give them a little bump because it's not as if oh shit, we have to backfill this 3rd round kid from freaking Dartmouth has to play up front. Like that was a really good team. Didn't make the playoffs, if you remember, for different reasons, but I had to give them a little bump because they're highly rated rookies coming in.
Okay. All right. That's fair.
Ernest Jones had more pressures. So I read this somewhere and I didn't go fact check this because I feel like it means off-ball linebacker. It just says linebacker. It said more pressures by a linebacker than anyone in the league last year. Like that can't be including like outside linebackers who rush.
Yeah, no way.
I'm guessing that just means interior guys, which is still impressive.
Okay. Where are you for? Maybe I'm low on defense. Where are you for coverage?
4.5.
You're making me feel better about my my week 1 bet, by the way.
I'm
higher than you on this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm at 5.5. I kind of like their coverage.
I like it. I'm willing to move up on this one quicker than the other ones because, like we talked about, Trey White is very good. He's a stud. He played like 200 snaps last year. He played like 200 snaps the year before that. He just isn't healthy. He's not good at staying healthy. Darius Williams is good. He had a nice year.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I think Darius Williams is pretty solid.
I think you have 2 good corners, but they're coming into a new system with a new DC, and you have a kind of a shitty free safety in Josh Johnson. You have a good slot guy. Quentin Lake's good. Maybe I'm a little low here. And then they did draft another one, Cam Kinchin's, another safety that probably won't see a lot of time. So it's a 4.5 with upside to a 6, I think.
Okay,
and maybe even higher. Like if Trey White's really good.
Yeah, that's kind of the X factor. And actually, that was why I bumped it up, is because if Trey White is in any way flushing, then I think this is probably like a 7-ish unit. And if he is cooked, then this is like a 4.5, and you're probably right. And so I went kind of middle of there because I honestly have no idea what to expect from him. I do expect Darius Williams to be a good CB1. I am a little cool on Quentin Lake, but he's good at the catch point. And then, I guess I'm just kind of glad at the guys they moved off, right? Yeah,
I can't put Trey White anywhere near the stats at his height because of the injuries. It was an ACL, and then the next year it was an Achilles. And I just
think he might be just cooked.
I don't want to say want to say he's cooked, but it's like, hey, what happens to guys? Well, hey, guess what? You're a safety now.
Yeah,
you're not a high level.
And they got enough safety, right? Johnson's good. I like John Johnson fine. Cam Curl, I like.
I had bad coverage grades on him.
On Johnson
some of that
on Johnson.
Some of that scheme, I think.
Oh, interesting. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking at something that's synthesized and isn't ideal. John Johnson. Why did I have him as a positive? Him going into last year as one of their second best defender after
he was good when he came in. It's just kind of
he only started 8 games last year. Okay, maybe he was hurt or something.
He didn't play the first part of the season.
Yeah, I kind of prorated him for the fact that he only started half the season.
Well, he only started half the season. That's when the defense was playing good, and he still didn't grade out well.
Okay,
so he was a negative for me.
Okay, so maybe I need to cool off on mine. I'm going to leave it for now. But
I'm really worried about Trey White with those 2 injuries to important parts of the body for an outside cut, a boundary corner.
Yeah. Okay. You are at a 43rd percentile for the defense. I'm at a 38th percentile. So we both agree this is a clearly below average defense. Not expecting it to finish anywhere close to average, let alone. And it's probably going to be like it was last year, 22nd-ish DVOA. Yeah. Special teams? Is this a bad
One.
number? One? Is it that low?
Yeah,
It's bad, but is it? It's really a one.
So
really?
This is from the DVOA crowd. That was the 10th worst all-time DVOA special teams in their history, excluding the COVID season. It was the worst since 2013 Washington.
Wow.
I mean, it was everything, like the kicking, the punting, the coverage.
We're not even going to give it the idea. We're not going to entertain the idea that they fixed anything.
they drafted a 6th rounder. He's going to kick. Cardi. They had a new punter last year. He was a 7th rounder. He had one of the worst net punting averages in the NFL.
Wow. Okay.
I think it's Stanford. I think it's a Stanford kicker.
All right.
Yeah, the worst part is like the fact that it wasn't just, hey, your kicker is bad, your punter is bad. It was the people who were really digging into this. I suppose it's FTN now, not Football Outsiders, that look at everything from special teams and actually take, because who else takes the time to give like a special teams rating like that and saying it's historically bad? The damning thing for me is that they didn't fire the special teams coordinator. Big Face just like, that's not how I look at special teams. We're bringing them back. So, and it's funny, we talk too much about something that plays 2.5% of our rating.
Hey, if we're low on the Rams, that's going to be one of the reasons, though. All right, intangibles. I'm at 3.5. 6. Oh, I thought you said that you didn't like the vibe and the in SoFi and all that. Where was this number 6 coming from?
It's still a coast. You still have the indoor. You still have the travel, and despite it all, this is a week 1 number. If I was making this for a playoff game, it's a 2. Because part of this is decision making. Part of this,
that's why I'm low.
Well, I'm fine with it during the season. Like I said, if this is a week 1 6, this is a super wild card weekend 2. Because he doesn't turn into a pumpkin during the regular season as much. He doesn't make those just glaring, let's kick a field goal here decisions.
Okay. So in totality, I'm at a 60th percentile, 61st, and you're at a 63rd. That makes me a plus 3.5. Are you a plus 3.5 or 4?
3.5.
Like 3.5.
Well, somebody asked a question about that. How we're coming up with those numbers. Someone asked on Twitter. I was going to tell him like we should just talk about it on the show. So it's funny because it looks funny when
I think we do it different ways. That's why I always ask you.
Yeah, I just used like my old ratings and said, like what would be 100th percentile team? Because it's funny. I got to thinking about that because you look at it, it's like 53. How's that 1.5? Because like there's just no fucking physical way for a team to get like all 10s. It's like, what would that team be? That team would be like 25 points better than a neutral.
Okay, here's how I looked at it. I looked at it as I have a table of win percentage and spread.
I did win probability like people do with baseball.
Yeah.
This is a 485 team. This is a 531 team.
That's how I did it.
And it's kind of how I do it previously, but I'm
not using it as an actual like, what are the differences between the two power numbers, right? I'm using it as an index, and it's like easy to think about it, and definitely easy to talk about it for content purposes. But
yeah, it'll be easy when we're all done. We'll post a sheet and we'll put them in order. It'll make it look a lot nicer.
Yeah. So for me, a 50th percentile team means you have a 50% chance to win against an average team on a neutral field. That means you are a 0.0. If you are a 53rd. Then you're at about 1.5. If you're at a 56th, then I have you close to a 3. If you are at a 60th percentile, you're at 3.5. If you're at 65th percentile, now we're at like 5, and up to about.
A lot of that has to do with just the conversion of if you go take and it's different. I know.
I'm sticking to the football thing, which is to say that I just wanted I want it to be relevant to where if. I don't want a big clump of 0s and 1s and everybody's average, right? Yeah. Like I'm literally spreading it on purpose because like if you have a 56% chance to beat an average team on a neutral field, then guess what? You're going to be a -2.5 in that game.
Yeah.
You are.
Well, yeah, just go look at a money line to spread conversion table.
That's what I'm using. Yeah, that's exactly. What I'm using.
So like
I'm assuming that the percentile we come up with is equal to the equivalent money line against a neutral team.
Fair enough.
That seems reasonable. Anyway,
that's kind of where that's what my old power ratings are based on that. So
yeah, I think that's a
when
fun way
I just
to
kind of
think about it.
went and started using that in general. But
Yeah.
it does at base level, it does look like 53rd percentile team doesn't seem like a very good team. Like it's so close to an average team, right? How are they getting a 1.5? And again, it comes down to that win percentage stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, honestly, like 100th percentile team is going to need to be like the Patriots in 2007, where they were consistently closing as like what 18-point favorites, right?
Well, even
Against average
that,
teams.
I think that's probably like what, an 88th percentile,
90 something. Yeah,
I don't know. Like, what's the perfect team?
I think that was the Patriots from maybe like week 10 or 12. When they were just like literally playing with their food against the Redskins at the time and the Bills. Randy Moss has 4 touchdowns at the half against the Bills.
What they did in Washington was horrible.
It was horrible. They
just kept scoring
horrible.
So yeah, like in this, I should do this. See what I put together. So if I had Mahomes, and I put him with Detroit's offensive line and San Francisco's skill position room, and then I mean honestly, probably just his coach again.
Yeah.
And then, what's one of your better defenses? I don't have like a lot of defensive numbers that are above 7 or 8, really.
No, I don't have a lot either.
Yeah.
Because it's impossible to tell that a defense is really, because it's so reactive.
It's so real.
It's so reactive.
It'd be Baltimore's coverage.
Yeah. Okay.
Pittsburgh's pass rush, and probably like New England or probably the Jets run stop. And even that, if I put all those numbers together, that's like the best of the best of the best. I'm getting like a 75th percentile team.
Yeah, but you know what that would be? Hang on, I'll tell you. If you have a 75th percentile team, then you would be.
It's like a minus 13.
Relative to an average team, that's like 7.5, 8 points. So you'd be a plus 8. You know how often you see plus 8s in power ratings? Very rarely. Yeah,
and you gotta put some home
field
on that.
It's rare. All right.
Schedule?
Well, let's do it.
The Los Angeles Rams start with a tough one on
much easier schedule than last year for these guys.
Really
much
nice.
Easier.
This is a Oreo soft middle.
Ooh, it surely is.
Soft, gooey middle, like a
oatmeal. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 consecutive games where you're favored. Ooh, boy.
The first 5 is not easy. And that's why you kind of alluded to this earlier. Like, there's never a reason to bet the Rams preseason. There's always a spotlight.
No, especially this year. Yeah.
Arizona is, we just wax poetic about how good we think
that's going to be a competitive game. And I don't think it's going to be a 1.
How shitty this defense could be.
Is there a look-ahead number for that yet?
It should be 3, right? I'm just looking at. Well, it's going to be in Arizona. Let's see. I have the Rams as a 3.5. I have Arizona's minus 2.5. So I would make that like 3.5.
Let me take a look here.
If I give Arizona a full 1.8 to be at home, I'm still over a field goal there.
There are some look-aheads up here, and it looks like the current market would say, what the fuck?
Some just have week 1 in totality, and then a bunch of like hand-picked good, primetime games for the rest of the season.
They're all there. They're all there.
They are? Okay.
It's 2.5 right now. It's 2.5 right now. Rams are 2.5 point favorites right now. All right, there you go. Sorry.
All right, so at Detroit's tough. Starting road isn't great, especially.
No,
it's not a. LA to Detroit's 5.5.
It's a 5-hour flight.
Yeah, it's not nothing, and then Arizona's not bad, but still, it's road Niners. Road Niners isn't a great start, and then Bears, Green Bay, which are both a couple of
frisky offenses.
We'll just start naming receivers for those two teams.
Well,
for use
Andy, here's the problem of the first 5.
If it is a bad defense,
you're going to know.
Yeah.
We're going to know.
Amon-Ra St. Brown, Marvin Harrison Jr., Ayuk and Debo, all the Bears receivers, all the Green Bay receivers, you're going to know in a hurry before you get to that bye. Then you're going to come out of that bye, and you're going to face possibly not quite yet traded Devontae Adams, then Justin Jefferson, and then the Seattle trio, and then the Miami duo. And then it gets easy. You get New England for a week. They don't have shit. That's nice. But there's the more I look at this, if this secondary doesn't gel in a hurry,
this is a murderer's row.
You have Philly, AJ Brown and Devontae Adams, AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. My God, why couldn't I say that? It was a complicated last name.
I was just gonna let you get there, but I had to do something.
New Orleans.
Complicated last name.
New Orleans has a good number one. Buffalo might not have shit. But then again, Niners again, Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr. again, and then closing with Seattle's trio. Like, it is a bad schedule if you're a secondary. Like, the secondary really needs to figure it out.
I agree with that. I would also say that the sequencing is front loaded in terms of exposing your defense, which isn't great based on the way we laid this out, right? We kind of laid it out that, like, if this defense kind of comes together, it's not going to be week one. It's going to take a little bit of time, I think, for them to find their identity, get the young players on the same page, and be playing well. And to me at least, that makes it seem very likely that the Rams are going to be digging themselves out of the same sort of hole they found themselves in last year, which was to say 3-6 or something along those lines, because there's a ton of offenses that are going to be putting a lot of pressure on you, and you're going to need to be an elite offense if you're going to get out to a hot start this year. And I think just in general, like, the idea of the Rams kind of fine-tuning things mid-season and then coming down the stretch again to take a wild card spot, or really to play into that week 18 game against Seattle that will be for a wild card spot, is kind of where I see this. I think this is probably a 9 or 10 win team. Where are you?
Yeah, it'll really depend on the coin flips, and the coin flips are going to come down to the defense probably. So as good as we think this offense probably is going to be, there's so many coin flips, and they're against teams with good offenses, good quarterbacks, good wide receivers. So if the pass rush, full of young people, doesn't sort it out really quickly and kind of work in, lockstep with this new rebuilt secondary, it could be like a 6-win team. It's there's a wide range. This is like one of those 5-12 kind of things.
Yeah. I teased it enough that I might as well just talk about it. I took the Rams plus the 3.5 against Detroit. There was some market drifting there that was largely based on concern about availability of key players that looks to have been relatively
assuaged.
I think the Rams are going to be fully healthy into that game, and I think that's going to be a very, very good close game. I'm actually more worried about the Lions offense right now than I am about the Rams offense for lots of reasons. Depth most clearly in the wide receiver room, I think ultimately, if that game were contested in the middle of the season at 3 or 3.5, I'd probably just let it go. But first game of the year, first primetime game of the year, I think there's a realistic chance that the Rams can win outright, or at a minimum keep that to 3. And I was getting a very fair price at 3.5, so I took it.
Yeah, I'd be pretty close. Let's see what I make that. I think I like Detroit better than you did. Just in general. Well, I have Detroit as higher. I have Detroit as a 6.
Okay.
So let's make that a 7.8 at home. Yeah, I'm pretty close to that number then.
Yeah.
It depends. And also, you're getting the other side of the field goal. It matters a little more than getting a number spot on. And it's 2.5.
The travel doesn't matter week 1.
No, a lot less.
And honestly, like, the timing is probably a little better for the Rams being in prime time. You're more on a Pacific body clock at that point.
Yeah. Some like we said, some bad travel things. Like, yeah, it is week 1. It kind of takes away from it, but still, you got to go to Detroit, and then it's the second one in a row, and then again to the Central Time Zone 2 weeks later in Chicago. The Seattle trip obviously isn't too bad, but you have at New England, which is that's 6 hours at least, 6.5.
Yeah, that's a lot of travel.
That's a tough one. And then 2 weeks later at New Orleans, which isn't as bad. It's central, but it's still at New Orleans. New Orleans off their bye. And then later in the season, after you play up in the Bay, you have at New York Jets. So you have a couple of
tough ones.
Three. I mean, Chicago shouldn't count. That's Central, but it's almost Detroit. Like you have 3 or 4 pretty long flights. 5 if you count New Orleans.
Yeah,
so that's kind of part of being on the coast. But travel isn't great. The spot with New Orleans isn't great for. That's one of your coin flips. Like you come in. They're rested off the bye, and you're coming in a dumb travel spot after playing a tough Philly team in prime time. Like that's a stupid game to lose. You lose games like that, you're not making the playoffs. That's kind of how it goes.
Yeah, especially against New Orleans. Okay. Final thoughts here. This is pretty straightforward. I don't mind betting the Rams week 1. I already did. I think that's just going to probably close 3. And I don't mind waiting on anything positive for the Rams for postseason. And I think if you are going to bet into the Rams mid-season, you swing for the fences. This is a team that can run into a playoff, a Super Bowl spot, and we shouldn't be surprised.
No.
And so I think kind of make the playoffs.
It comes down to Shules, baby.
It all comes down to Shules. If they're 3-6 or something along those lines, and you want to just kind of nibble on, make the playoffs because that's more likely to hit. No, swing for the fences. I think. I don't think that this is a team that necessarily you're scared or concerned. You like to split your stick.
Just a little bowl.
Split your stick. Okay. All right. Well, we agree. Good team. Rams are fun. Gonna watch a lot of their games. Probably watch all their games because I'm going to get them locally.
Oh yeah,
I don't have to pay $600 for my YouTube to watch the Rams. I'm just going to flip on the old TV.
Even though they're west, I might catch them on a stream from the east. If you catch my draft, because $700 is unruly, you guys.
I cannot believe.
Not only that, but I already have Red Zone through like my NFL Plus. Have you played? Kind of closing thoughts. Have you played with the new NFL Plus Pro stuff?
Only every day.
It is amazing. If you have NFL Plus, go play with that. It's so awesome. Like
every day.
There's so many options. It's a million things. It's awesome. So appreciate you guys. If you watched in the YouTube, hit the thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. If you listen to this in podcast form, enjoy the rest of your whatever the fuck day I publish this on. We'll catch you tomorrow. No Lies was right.